Making a sequel to a good movie can be complicated, especially when everyone liked the first movie. Some sequels are necessary to continue the story, but other, let's say the truth, should have never been created. The cinema industry served us a ton of bad sequels, but some destroyed an entire franchise. From iconic classics to superhero movie, here's the movies that didn't need a sequel. Jaws 2. Jaws 2 had an impossible task: following up one of the greatest films ever made. Spielberg's Jaws wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural phenomenon, redefining horror and blockbusters forever. The sequel, however, felt like a desperate attempt to cash in on the original success rather than a story that needed to be told. Without Spielberg at the lead and with key figures like Richard Dreyfuss absent, Jaws 2 struggled to maintain the same level of tension, intelligence, and raw terror that made the first film so unforgettable. Instead of the high tension and suspense that made the original so effective, the sequel leaned heavily into action horror, offering more shark attacks but significantly less atmosphere. The first movie focused on your psychology, making you afraid of even dipping a toe in the water. The feeling that something horrifying was lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to strike. Instead, the new film relied on more frequent, almost repetitive shark encounters, which removed the fear factor and made the once terrifying great white feel more like a generic monster. Chief Brody's actor did his best to carry the film, but even his performance couldn't elevate a story that felt repetitive. The film's teenage cast, who were meant to add a fresh dynamic, only made things worse, shifting the focus away from the realism of the original into more typical horror movies. Fans and critics were quick to point out Jaws 2's flaws. While it wasn't a total disaster, it failed to recapture the magic, fear, and artistry of its predecessor. Son of the Mask. The original Mask, starring Jim Carrey, was a game changer in the world of comedy and special effects. It combined Carrey's trademark energy with incredible visuals, creating a classic that was both hilarious and innovative. On the other hand, Son of the Mask lacked everything that made the first film memorable. From the very beginning, it became clear that this was a sequel built only for commercial purposes, without any regard for what made the original work. To begin, the absence of Jim Carrey was felt immediately. His unique brand of humor was irreplaceable, and without him, the film struggled to find any comedic rhythm. Instead, Son of the Mask centered on a new protagonist, Tim Avery, played by Jamie Kennedy, a character who lacked both the charisma and charm that Carrey brought to his role. Kennedy's performance was flat, and his comedic timing couldn't hold Carrey's energy delivered effortlessly in the first film. Instead of focusing on the chaotic, funny consequences of wearing the magical mask, Son of the Mask introduced a weird plotline involving the creation of a son with the powers of the mask, and an odd subplot featuring a dog that becomes infused with the mask power. On top of that, the humor in Son of the Mask was juvenile and forced, with many really bad jokes. Audiences and critics called out the movie for being a lazy cash grab that completely missed the mark. Son of the Mask failed to recapture the magic of the original in any possible way, and instead became one of the most notorious examples of how a sequel can ruin the legacy of a beloved movie. The movie became a forgettable and embarrassing disaster, proving that sometimes it's best to leave a classic alone, rather than risking its reputation with a bad sequel. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was supposed to be the next big chapter in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with high expectations. It should have continued the story of Scott Lang and his funny, lovable team. But instead, the film ended up feeling more like a complete mess, trying to do too much while sacrificing the charm and heart that made the first two Ant-Man movies so enjoyable. First, the decision to dive deep into the quantum realm rather than keeping things in the real world was a double-edged sword. While the setting had the potential to be a visually stunning and imaginative background for the story, it quickly became overwhelming and hard to follow. The quantum realm, with its weird landscapes and endless CGI sequences, ended up feeling like a soulless digital playground rather than a meaningful or fascinating environment. The once charmingly small-scale nature of the Ant-Man films was lost in a sea of over-the-top visual effects, leaving the film feeling more like a generic sci-fi spectacle than a fun superhero movie. One of the film's biggest missteps was its handling of the villain, Kang the Conqueror. Introduced as a major threat to the entire multiverse multiverse, Kang had the potential to be one of the most formidable and complex villains in the MCU. However, Quantumania wasted his character with a villain with no charisma and easy to defeat. The script didn't do enough to show Kang's motivations or his potential to be the next big antagonist for the MCU, leaving him feeling like just another generic villain rather than the conqueror fans had hoped for. And one of the worst issues was the film's CGI. The real disappointment came with the character of MODOK, a fan favorite villain who was introduced with much anticipation. Instead of being the imposing, memorable character that fans expected, MODOK's CGI representation was nothing but shocking in a bad way. Fans expected a film that would leave a lasting impact on the MCU's future, but instead it served as a reminder that not every movie in a good franchise is guaranteed to succeed. Each of these films failed to capture the magic of their predecessors, either through weak storytelling, over-reliance on CGI, or misguided performances. These films remind us that something bigger isn't always better, and sticking to the core essence of a story is the key. In the end, failure isn't permanent. It's an opportunity to learn and rise again. It's not about how hard you fall, but after how high you rise. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to reach the 2000 subscribers.